Good evening and welcome to the Red Hook Town Board meeting of January 25th, 2017. Would you be kind enough to rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Well, we have a very lengthy agenda this evening. We'll hope to get through it as quickly as we can for the folks at home. We are in day 2 of our experiment with trying to bring government to your living room. We assume that's where the TV is. And we're going to show you very slowly, hopefully, in a way that you can read it, what's on the agenda for this evening. And there'll be documents backing up each one of these agenda items. And this is our second monthly meeting, which time at the end of the meetings we get our monthly reports from our various committees that let us know what they're up to as well. So why don't we jump in?
Sorry. Can you just scroll that back down to the top and
Gonna do that.
take it from there?
So we're going to get started, if you will, with item number 1. Up 7:35. Well, we could go right into our public hearing then, which was scheduled for this time. It is a public hearing on the adoption by the town board of local law 1 proposed of 2017. Essentially, we'd like to put a stop sign on a road, and in order to do so, we actually have to adopt a local law. So that is what this public hearing is about this evening. And Sue McCann, our town clerk, would you be kind enough to read the public hearing notice?
Certainly. Notice of public hearing, Town of Red Hook. Please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the town board of the Town of Red Hook on January 25th, 2017 at 7:35 p.m. local time at the Town Hall, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook, New York, 12571. To hear all interested persons on a proposed local law number A, proposed of 2017, entitled A Local Law Amending Chapter 131 of the Code of the Town of Red Hook, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, to add a new stop sign at Rokeby Road East of Route 103. The amendment designates an additional stop intersection at Rokeby Road, eastbound at the triangle east of County Route 103, River Road. Existing stops at Rokeby Road near Benner Road are clarified. Please take further notice that copies of said proposed local law are available for review at the Town Hall, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook, New York. All interested persons will be given an opportunity to be heard in person or by directing comments in writing to the Town Board, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook, New York, 12571. All reasonable accommodations will be made for persons with disabilities. In such a case, please notify the town clerk in advance at the above address or by phone 845-758-4606 so that arrangements can be made. By order of the Town Board of the Town of Red Hook, dated January 10th, 2017, Sue McCann, Town Clerk, Town of Red Hook. And these were filed according to law with the Poughkeepsie Journal and the Freeman, posted on our town website, posted at Town Hall, and sent to the 2 villages.
Very good. Thank you very much, Sue. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody here tonight to speak about this proposed stop sign? Okay. I suspected not, but hearing no comment, I would then entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Okay, and that item is the second item on the agenda. I'll go right now very quickly into announcements. And we do have a couple of announcements. The first one is we received notice just the other day that the town has been awarded the grant funds that we applied to DEC for 4 charging spots for electric vehicles in our town hall property. And so it's very exciting news. We're to receive a rebate of $26,349 once we do the installation. And we will let you know when that project is complete. We'd like to obviously participate with New York State in developing out the infrastructure that's necessary for rapid adoption of electric vehicles. So great work, especially by our Energy Committee members. We have Laura Eusted here tonight, Dennis Collet, and Jen Kavanaugh, who uploaded the application and did a lot of the legwork. We really appreciate that. It's very exciting. I should also tell you at the same time that we received a letter just this afternoon that we've completed our energy code educational training. And so we've now completed all our high impact actions. And so we are going to be certified as a clean energy community, as we've discussed in previous meetings. So we will find out in short order whether or not we'll receive $100,000 non-matching funds and or $50,000. So we're probably something like the 3rd or 4th community in New York State to achieve this designation. All good news. And again, thanks to the Energy Committee members who've done so much work, and others on the CAC to get us to that point. I would also like to make as another announcement, just a reminder to folks, thank you, that New York State for the 2nd year in a row is playing host to the Special Olympics, and as they did last year, they require volunteers. I believe last year they had over 19,000 volunteers. It's really quite an inspirational occasion. I was in attendance for the opening night. It's the weekend of February 17th through 19th, and I believe that's President's Weekend. And there is lots of information on the website, which is www.specialolympicsny.org, on how you can both participate and or volunteer for this terrific event. And that's all I have for announcements. Does anybody else have an announcement they would like to make before we take some public comment? Okay, hearing none. Is there any public comment on any other issues not related to the public hearing that somebody would like to make? Okay, very good. Let's move into item number 1. That's the healthcare benefits determination. We've been looking and discussing the plans for our employees and taking a look at the budgets, and it looks like going forward, at least for this year, we can meet our budget projection with the same plan that we had for last year, the MVP Silver 8. It does, however, come at an increase of 9%, and cumulatively over the last 2 years, it's nearly a 30% increase in our healthcare costs. Obviously, next year will be very interesting to see what transpires. But have you had a chance to take a look at the plans, and any thoughts about going with a different plan?
I still think sticking with what we have is the right choice for this time.
I
Okay.
agree.
And do I agree.
Okay, we've got.
I've looked at it a fair amount.
Okay. Very good. Well, we do have, well, I have it separately facing the correct direction as well, but we have all the employee information and budget related to this. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we go ahead and approve the Silver 8 plan again for the year 2017. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion?
It includes the dental and vision too, right?
Dental and vision, yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And thanks to Ann Conway for doing lots of spreadsheets to help us take a look at the numbers. Okay, item number 2 was that very exciting public hearing we had on instituting a stop sign at Rokeby Road, east of Route 103. And we have a lengthy resolution, which I think we could summarize. In fact, I'd be happy to do that. Resolution number
6.
6, dated January 25th, 2017, authorizing the adoption by the town board of the town of Red Hook local law A proposed of 2017. Are we calling that local law 1 at this point? Okay. Regarding a new stop sign at Rokeby Road, east of 103, and it essentially says we've proposed a form of local law A, entitled Local Law Number 1, proposed of 2017, amending Chapter 131, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, to add a new stop sign. We have done our seeker work, and we've determined that it's a Type 2 action, and we have a now therefore be it resolved. So would anybody like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 6?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay. We are on item number 3, local law B of 2017, amendments to the zoning map. As we've discussed at previous meetings, we have finally taking action on 2 things that were held over for a while. The first is the Wilms property that needed a map adjustment in zoning. And then the other is the R1.5, the parcels that are essentially adjacent to the BART campus, most of which BART already owns. The change being from residential 1.5 to institutional. And we have some seeker work that we need to do related to these agenda items.
You should have in your packet an environmental assessment form prepared by Michelle for the board,
Right.
which describes the proposed action. And so the first consideration would be to move to authorize the supervisor to sign the EAF, Part 1.
That's correct, and as a reminder, we are simultaneously looking at 2 things, the application to amend the zoning and also the 2 projects themselves. We are doing the seeker work together, so there's no segmentation issues. And so we have the EAF form, Part 1, which was prepared by our planner in conjunction with the information been submitted both by Wilms and by Bard.
And I'll note that you also have a CAF form for the LWRP, but the LWRP form will be for future consideration.
Right.
The CAF should be accompanying the EAF, okay? You should have that in your packet.
Does everybody have that, the coastal management
Mhm.
forms? Okay, very good. Well, that being said, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the resolution to declare?
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
Mr.
Yes.
Supervisor, please, first thing would be the authorization for the supervisor to sign part one of the EAF.
Okay,
Okay?
we'll do the authorization to sign part one of the EAF rather. Bill, would you like to?
Yes, I make that motion.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I will go ahead and do that.
Next then would be the lead agency resolution.
That's
Correct.
correct.
I would so move that resolution, which would be what, number 7?
That, I believe, is correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
To declare the town board as the lead agency status in connection with SEQA.
Okay. And then the last resolution we have would then be to set the public hearing. As you know, we need to circulate. We'll be circulating to both our town planning board and to the county. In addition, there may be a need to circulate to the ZBA if there are any setback variances or anything that would be required by the Behringer House addition. And so we do have quite a bit of time. I think we can get that turned around. We have meetings by both the planning board and the ZBA between now and when we have our next town board meeting, which is February 14th. So I would suggest that we set the 14th at 7:35. And I'm looking for my resolution here. To set the public hearing.
Now, I know Bill moved on the lead agency. We have a
Yes,
second on
yeah,
that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
second.
was there a second for that?
No, yeah.
I don't know.
All right,
I
I'll se-
seconded something. I think I did the EAF.
I'll
Did I
second,
something?
I'll second the lead agency, all right. Any further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, then
That's
let's,
7.
let's,
And then I also will move
Thank you,
resolution
Bill.
number 8, which is that the town board set a public hearing for February 14th at, what?
7:35.
7:35.
7:35.
Okay, I'll set,
On the proposed amendment to the zoning concerning the Wilms property.
okay.
And Bar.
And the,
Huh?
That's
and the
And Bar.
R1.5
And
to
Bar.
institutional. Okay, I will
Now, is the
second.
lead agency also on board?
Yes,
Yeah,
they all are,
it's all going together in one local law.
right.
Okay?
One zoning map amendment.
We're gonna change the map for both things.
Okay, and
Right.
All right, I will
Okay.
second that motion to approve the resolution setting the public hearing for the 14th at 7:35. Any further discussion? If not, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved, thank you very much.
So
Thank
both
you.
those resolutions apply to both.
Okay.
Yes.
Even
Yes.
all the secret forms also
Exactly.
apply to both. If
Everything's-
you look, everything's separated by a semicolon.
Yeah.
Correct. Everything's created to cover both.
Okay, I'm gonna jump around if that's okay with everyone, just because we have some people in the audience, and I'd like to get to either the quicker items in the agenda. Oh, they're gonna get dizzy if they watch me scroll everything in the agenda. Number 5, we have our highway superintendent here. It's a very simple resolution to declare surplus highway equipment. As you know, we recently replaced our loader with a new one. And so we are taking our 20-year Samsung loader, and we are going to declare it as surplus equipment and put it up for auction. So if anybody's interested in a giant motor, we welcome you to go to the auction website and place a bid. So we do have a resolution that was prepared. This is in your folder number 5. It's resolution now number 9, thank you, Sue, dated January 25th. It's authorizing the sale of surplus equipment. Harry, it's Highway Department. Can I ask you to read this quick one?
Sure.
Can I do some scrolling?
The town of Red Hook Highway Superintendent has recommended its disposition of the surplus equipment described herein in the manner set forth herein. Now, therefore be it resolved by the town board of the town of Red Hook as follows. The town board hereby declares the following item as surplus equipment to be sold at fair value in as is, where is condition in accordance with the procedures on the terms and conditions set forth in this resolution. It is a 1998 Samsung loader. The purchase agent is authorized to engage the reputable online auction agent approved by the purchasing officer at a commission not exceeding 10% for the online auction sale of the surplus equipment at a minimum bid and offering period to be determined by the purchasing officer. And upon completion of the close of bidding in accordance with the auction agent's procedures, such sale shall become final upon payment of the bid price to the town. The surplus equipment shall be available for inspection at the town highway department, Red Hook, New York, 12571, pending the sale of the auction. And the highway department is right behind town hall.
Can I just ask a question? The 10% commission, is that for the seller or the buyer?
The sale agent,
That's
Okay.
The auction house.
commission on the auction house.
Okay, because usually the commission is charged to the buyer.
Well, this is the not to exceed, Ted's gonna decide, this is just to give him a cushion.
Okay, great.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Harry.
Discretion.
Was there a second on that?
No.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sarah. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Thank you all very much. That is item number 5. Okay, well, we have, I think I'd like to, with your permission, I'd like to jump to item number 9 on the agenda. That is a discussion of the Waterfront Conservation District micro hydro. And we have some folks here who I think would like to do a presentation. Just for the folks at home, a reminder that very exciting, Bard College received a very prestigious award of $1 million to study the potential to do micro hydro in our community, and also, if I have it correctly, to assess how to replicate this in other communities. And we are at the point where they are actually studying 3 potential sites, if I've got it correct, here in our community. And so in order to have that be a permissible activity, something that was not contemplated in our zoning, we would need to make a text change in our zoning. And we would need to do so in the Waterfront Conservation District, which is the district that includes all of our streams and within 1,000 feet of the Hudson River. So the town board is at the point where it's now received an application, and we'll be taking a look at whether or not we're interested in doing that and authorizing our planner to go forward with drafting some language to allow that. So who do we have here, Lori? Did I get most of that correctly?
Thank you for
Okay.
summarizing all that. Can you open the email?
Oh, yeah, we can go ahead and do
Yeah,
that.
meantime, we have members of the BARD grant team here today. And Joel Hearn, who was instrumental in getting this grant with us, and is going to talk to you through the presentation. And we have copies for you all too if it's.
This must be a big file.
It is.
It is.
Okay. I may have to hand the computer over to somebody who's a little more savvy, but let's see. I've got it downloaded. Oh, now you get to see this on my computer. Red Hook Code proposal, is that it? Okay.
Fantastic.
Open or open with?
You should have PowerPoint, yes, that's perfect. Sure.
Always around.
Oh, isn't this exciting?
This is the first time he's used it.
Well, I may hand this computer to you in a second. I don't think I need to go through this.
Just to get started, I think.
Yeah, get started.
Okay.
Start using PowerPoint, yay.
Very nice.
I have the old fashioned one.
The one that works always. Okay, fantastic.
Okay, shall I try to do full screen on this? Or
Yeah,
you all read
the
this?
little presentation icon at the lower right. Keep going, down, down, down.
This one?
Yep, perfect. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Fantastic. So like Lori said, my name is Joel Herm. Lori gives me too much credit for the proposal that I wrote with BARD to NYSERDA, but she and I basically wrote it together along with Matt Deedy, who's in the room, along with some other BARD faculty and students. So the project really is, as you mentioned, to figure out how to do small-scale hydro in local communities and report back to NYSERDA and really to the state as to what we found on what works and what doesn't work, not only technically, but with getting clean energy integrated into communities, as well as how small distributed generation like microhydro or solar can really play in the utility market. So that's why we're here tonight, is to really work with you and see what Red Hook needs from not only bringing in new energy, but in a way that makes sense for Red Hook. So we're really here to, or I'm here anyway, to hear what concerns you have and how we can kind of work together to make what I feel anyway is a really significant way to help fight climate change at the end of the day. So next slide.
Okay.
So a lot of people have asked me, what the heck is hydropower and why isn't it ubiquitous already? So it really was the first utility energy system in America. Back in 1882, the first public utility was a hydroelectric utility out in Appleton, Wisconsin. And I think it was the first go-to energy source for electricity, just because they hadn't really figured out coal mining yet so much. And it is kind of the ultimate renewable energy source, because a lot of people, old timers that I've talked to in the hydro energy business, consider themselves actually kind of farmers. They kind of feel like they're farmers of rain. So, and the great thing about hydro in the renewable energy space is, unlike solar and unlike wind, it's kind of always going. And certainly for Red Hook, and I think any small-scale hydro site really should only be a what's called a run-of-river site, which means you're only borrowing the water for a matter of seconds, or at the most maybe a minute or two. So you divert it from usually a dam that already exists, run it through a turbine, which turns a generator, which puts energy onto the grid, and then the water immediately goes back into the river, almost as if nothing happened. So it's kind of a lend-lease situation. And on the next slide, the thing that makes me most excited about hydroelectricity is, of all the energy sources on the planet, it is the lowest greenhouse gas emitter, and that's taking into consideration the full life cycle of the energy facility. The greenhouse gases required to build the plant, operate the plant, and of course, not in the case of hydro, but with natural gas and coal, the carbon footprint of burning the fuel. So our fuel is water, so once the plant is put in, there's very little, if any, greenhouse gas emitted, because it's just water going through a turbine. There is a greenhouse gas equivalent burden with any hydro site, because what happens is the pond upstream of the dam allows for anaerobic decomposition of materials, which creates methane, which is a pretty powerful greenhouse gas. But the biggest burden for methane in a hydro facility is when it's first put in. When a dam is first put in, the water starts building up behind the dam, and all the trees and what have you that were cut down to make way for the new pond starts decaying, and that creates the methane. But in a situation here, the dams were put in 100 years ago, so all that original methane production is completely gone, because it usually has a big burden in the first 4 or 5 years of a new dam construction. So those are the main things I think would be relevant for the code, is that you'd want to say it's got to be a run-of-river, and it's got to use an existing dam, because we don't want to put in a lot of unknowns of putting in a new structure, damming up the river. So if the dam's already there, we kind of know how to do it in an environmentally sound way. Next slide. So there are lots of ways to kind of bring it home as to why we're doing this. Not only, I mean, that previous slide weren't my numbers; those were DOE numbers. But the one site that we're looking at Bard, on the upper site, would generate enough power to drive an electric car from here to the moon in 1 year's time. So it's, when you think about that, it's kind of a powerful little site just on at the upper dam site at Bard. Next slide. And like I was saying before, one of the great qualities of hydro electricity is that it's going all the time. Where solar is only generating electricity about 4 hours a day, we're doing it at least 23 and a half hours a day. The half hour a day compensates for downtime for maintenance, or if a stick gets stuck in the turbine or something like that. But generally, it's a beautiful base load energy source. Next slide. Essentially, what we're suggesting the town consider is, small generation units. They're ideal for doing microgrids, where if the when the big grid is going, the energy is just using it's going to the nearest houses to give them at least clean energy. But if the grid overall goes down at the point of common connection, that can be switched off, and now the little microgrid can keep operating as if the storm didn't go through and all the power lines went down, because the hydro generator would be sized to keep that part of the microgrid going in the event of grid outage. Okay, next slide. And people always ask me, what does hydro look like? And you guys already know what it looks like, because there was a micro hydro site put in the 1920s on Montgomery Place. It was a 30 kilowatt system which powered the mansion and a couple of the ancillary buildings around the mansion. The walls are still down there. I don't know if you've all gone through the site, but what we're proposing or working on is a design to basically put the roof back on and put windows back in and reuse the powerhouse for one of the sites. And do a historic restoration of the actual structure. Next slide. And we're not the only ones that are thinking about this. Bennington, Vermont did a similar student research project for revitalizing an old hydro system up in Bennington. And they just applied for federal approval of their site. So again, this is what they look like. It's not like a huge Hoover Dam or big nuclear power plant. They can be very, very small and compact.
It's that little brown building behind the firehouse?
Yeah, exactly. That's
This thing here where I'm trying to use the scrolling.
right.
Next slide.
Sorry?
Next slide.
Next slide, please. This is another type of turbine. It's an Archimedes screw turbine. So it's very old technology, like 2,000 years old, because Archimedes designed the screw, not for a turbine, but for pumping water uphill. But some pretty bright people, maybe 20, 30 years ago, said, hey, if we threw water down the pump, what would happen? Well, it turns out it turns, and you put a generator up at the top, and voila. And the great thing about an Archimedes screw turbine is it's quite fish-friendly on the way down, because the gap between the blades is so wide that fish don't get chewed up like they do in a more compact turbine. And also the slide talks about, in the case of Archimedes turbines, that the sound is actually less coming out of the turbine than at the nearby waterfall. Because a couple of my neighbors in Rhinebeck, where I'm proposing to put a small site on my property, I heard anecdotally that one of the neighbors, when didn't know me, heard about my project, said, oh, it's going to be so noisy. But even with other turbines other than the Archimedes screw, the noise is never going to be more than the natural waterfall of the dam. Next slide. This is a new type of turbine, and new is comparative to the history of hydropower. This is going back about, I think, 15 years. So the idea here is kind of like with the Archimedes screws, to make a more fish-friendly turbine. So this is basically a big round bathtub with a drain at the bottom, and the water is injected, if you will, at the tangent, so it starts creating a bathtub vortex. And you can kind of see right in the center here, this is an axle with blades in that volume of water that's turning. And you can see this generator is really pretty small, and this one in particular is very, very quiet. Next slide. So we're pretty excited about trying one of these out at the upper site. This is the one that could send a car to the moon with 1 year's worth of electricity generated. And I'm sure the town is concerned about what these things look like. So this is one of these gravitational vortex systems that we rendered into the Annandale site, which is corner of
just
River
south
Road.
of the triangle.
Just south of the
On
triangle.
Annandale. So that's Annandale Road,
Right.
headed north.
It's the dam that's near the barn.
The dam is to the right.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
So here they are. I mean, if the town wanted them completely hidden, you can kind of see that a low fence would completely hide them. And again, gravitational vortex turbines are very, very quiet, and I think you would hear the waterfall going over the spillway, which is further to the east in this picture than you would from the turbines itself.
There's the remains of what used to be there, still there. Yeah. And
Right.
you can't see, you can stand right, I've stood right there. Can't see it.
Right, exactly, right. And in fact, we would reuse that opening in the dam. So these would be the two circular containers that would cause the vortex. And you can, so the water would come in, go through, and then just go in a rip-rap channel back into the river. Again, maybe at the most, there might be 2 minutes time from the water here to, I think about 100 feet post the turbines. Okay, next slide. Not that we don't like solar, we love solar as well, but you'd need this many panels to generate the same amount of electricity in a year as that little footprint of those two circular turbines. Next slide. And these are the three sites that we're looking at BARD. The Lower Sawkill Facility 1, which is the powerhouse that we saw earlier. Facility 2 is a smaller turbine at the dam itself. There's obviously less of a delta in distance between the two sites, but as long as we have water, and there's about 7 feet of drop there at the facility 2 level, so we can make some electricity there. So if it is feasible, we'd like to take a look at that as our second site. And then the third site is the one we just looked at, the Annandale Dam. Okay, next slide. So then the last question, maybe it's not the last question, but a big question is who's going to use this electricity that we're generating? So there are a couple of potential off-takers, the water and waste treatment plants at BARD. We could create a community distributed generation group. That's where a group of people agree to buy all the electricity from the site at pretty much retail prices. So it's good for the owner of the hydro site as well as for the consumers, because the consumers know exactly where their electricity is coming from, and it's a way to kind of support green energy. Another thing that Lori and I have been talking about is perhaps using electricity off the BARD sites to power a greenhouse. And that's kind of a double gain there, because because the hydro is generating energy all day long and all night long, the greenhouse can be in constant production. But the bigger play with having hydro power greenhouses is now all of a sudden our tomatoes don't have this big transportation cost of taking them from California all the way to Haverford or whatever the grocery store is here. So to me, it would be kind of an ideal situation where the energy is local and the produce is local, and there's no real greenhouse gas burden to having a nice tomato in January. And then we already talked about microgrid applications for emergency resiliency. And so if we could get power to a hospital in an emergency situation, that could be kind of a nice use of that very constant base load energy coming off of a hydro system. And then we put some question marks on this slide just because we really do want to engage with you guys and see what kind of issues that maybe hydro could solve here in Red Hook. We don't know what those are. Be interested to hear. Next slide. I think we're almost done. This page is in your handouts, and you might have some questions there that could be answered on this page, kind of in a macro level. So next slide. This is a study that I did at my site down in Rhinebeck. And from an ecological standpoint, the big issue is migratory fish being able to get over man-made obstacles put into rivers. So Hudsonia did a study at my site where they had kind of actual live fish. And they did find eels below my dam as well as above my dam, even though I don't have any fish passage device. So eels are pretty stubborn fish because they come from the Caribbean as little glass eels. And so apparently they don't let a little 6-foot-high dam stop them from getting to where they want to go. So in my case, I want to make it even easier for them, so I will put in a fish ladder just for the eels. Next slide. And the one on the left is what an eel ladder looks like. It's basically just a stainless steel trough with some brushes in it that the eels use to wiggle on up and get over the dam. So it's very inexpensive, and there's a lot of science on this that they really do work. Salmon and herring are a little more tricky, a little more expensive to help get upstream. You can see that it's just more of a civil works project to get salmon and herring over a dam. On the Sauk Hill, I guess we're fortunate or not fortunate that there's a natural waterfall just up from Tivoli Bay, which herring have never in the last million years have ever gotten over. So there doesn't need to be any mitigation for herring anywhere on the Saukville. Next slide. So other people ask me, why hasn't this been done before? And this is one of the reasons why it hasn't been done. Because there are lots of necessary regulations on doing hydro. I won't get into all this, and you are obviously familiar with the secret process, so we certainly need to go through that process for anything that you do here in Red Hook. But FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, may or may not be required to issue an exemption of permit. I've been in contact with the regional manager at FERC for small hydro down in Washington, D.C., and he's kind of the mind that these are such small projects that all he really needs is a letter of intent about what we want to do. That letter of intent obviously needs to have all the science and all the due diligence that we've done, so that he can issue a letter of non-jurisdiction that and then file it somewhere in the basement in Washington, D.C. But if they determine that they do need to have jurisdiction, then we would apply for an exemption of permit as opposed to a permit. And the nice thing there about an exemption, it's kind of the same process as getting a permit from FERC, but an exemption lives in perpetuity, unlike licenses, which are usually for 20 years or sometimes less or sometimes more. And then the usual players involved, the state level, DEC, Office of General Services, and New York State Parks for historic preservation, authorization, etc. And then we come to beautiful Red Hook, where we don't have anything in the residential town code specifically for hydro, and that's where we need to be. Next slide. I think we're almost done. Oh, this was Bennington's kind of mission statement for hydro. So we put that in just to give you an idea of what other towns are thinking or how they're thinking. Next slide. And then lastly, here's the great work that we need to do. And obviously, if you do decide to write statute, it should flow into the Red Hook Energy and Climate Action Plan that you've already done such great work on. I think that's it. Sorry if I bored you.
Are there other micro hydro projects in the Hudson Valley that you're aware of, up or down the river?
Not any new ones other than mine in Rhinebeck. The system that's been running in Wapachuk Falls, that's a 2 megawatt system. There's a guy across the river who kind of did a do-it-yourself system. I don't know if I'm sure he didn't get FERC approval. And I do think the DEC might have issued him a stream disturbance permit, but it was, I think he's kind of I want to get off the grid, away from society type of guy. Yeah. So there have been a lot of those that we probably don't know about. But the reason why there aren't more micro hydro sites around is kind of a permitting maze that I showed you. And the cost of the equipment has always been really, really high. So it's been financially unfeasible to really put in a system because you'd be basically losing money, or it would take you 50 years to get your money back. So our challenge with the NYSERDA project is to figure out if it can be done financially sustainable, because if it's not financially sustainable, it's not going to, you know, you could approve this, but if it's not going to work financially, you know, they'll all be abandoned in 5 years or 10 years, and that's not what we want. I want to see these things running for our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I think that's where we need to be.
Would this be a standalone system, or you expect to hook to the grid?
I think most of them should connect to the grid for sure.
Really? Do you remember 40 years ago when Vermont did this and the world came to an end up there?
I do not know about that specifically, but tell me about it.
Well, Vermont, and I know I don't remember all the gory details, but I had friends up there who decided they were going to. They found a way to total financial independence, and Vermont had passed some laws that enabled people to build hydro systems, often on their own property, and they had a fixed amount that it would be the electric power would be sold to the Vermont electric system, and you know, kind of all hell broke loose, and there were one system after the other. I mean, I had some friends who actually built the thing themselves.
Yeah.
Built sluiceways and, you know, just what you have here, and after a couple of years, well, all the arms went up. Stop.
So
you can't do this. You can't do this.
So the pricing signal went away, or they just had...
They wouldn't buy it after.
Were they in North Bennington? I mean, they look like...
Well, that's probably, it won't be one of the mains, when it was something that's left over from when that happened.
Well, that
Yeah.
site in
Yeah.
North Bennington, I grew up about 10 miles from there, and they, it has an old water wheel, like right next to there, and a beautiful mill house that's been turned into offices. So, I mean, that's a site that was used for hydropower for,
Right.
you know, centuries.
I mean, I had a
Well,
friend
that's
that had
what
a
Bard's taking
small,
advantage of here in a
Yeah,
way.
basically.
in a small
Right. It's not a
waterfall
dissimilar
in-
situation.
Yeah.
on his
That
property,
area in North
and he built a
Bennington is much more
sluice
public
to
than
a
the one
wheel
in
to,
Barnable, because
and
it's right
about
in
the time he
major
finished it, the
thoroughfare.
whole thing, there was no longer funding available. They wouldn't pay for
Well,
his power.
Well, exactly right, and I think that's where we don't want to be. We don't want
Yeah.
to do these things with subsidies,
Mhm.
because if they're subsidized, you know, exactly what will happen, what happened in Vermont could happen to us in 5 years or 10 years. So that's why, like I was saying earlier, that these will only work. I know that the technology works. I mean,
Oh, sure. It's
it
been
lasts
used
for
forever,
50
as you
years,
say.
100 years.
Yeah.
Each turbine will last that long.
Mhm.
So that's why we need to figure out how to do them in a financially sustainable way, so that I know that my grandchildren will be,
Mhm.
you know, in my case, you know, making money off of that site in 2117.
But-
So no subsidies. I don't think that's the right way to go.
Mm.
If we can't get the costs down at a high quality, you know, we shouldn't be doing these things.
Have you considered doing it as a standalone system, or some small aspect of the needs at Bard? Like running a small greenhouse, or
Well, exactly right.
A
So
green,
that's
a
definitely what
greenhouse
we're-
would work. It would- I
That's what
would
we're
think,
looking at,
you know.
exactly.
And then you don't have to be on the grid.
Then you don't have to be on the grid. But now your tomato that you're growing in that greenhouse has to basically be charged for the electricity coming from it. So it's kind of an internal accounting
Yeah.
system, but,
But you're an educational institution, so.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
No, there's,
right. But Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up the Vermont issue because I think that is the biggest danger here of not only for hydro but for any renewable is that if it's subsidized heavily,
Yeah.
it's not going to be sustainable.
Mhm.
Because I think, you know, the design really has to be thought out for this long-term play
Mhm.
to make sure that that clean energy is going to be created for the next 100 years.
I think your
So,
comments.
I think when you're talking about using it locally, one of the things we have been considering and is still very high on our agenda is since the Bard waste treatment plant is right there at the stream and it uses power essentially 24 hours a day, this could be tied in very directly to that, and we're already pricing out what percentage of the running of that plant and maybe the water treatment plant as well could come from the dam project right there.
Exactly.
Why not? I can't imagine that you couldn't get approval for the Public Service Commission. I think probably would want to look twice at what funds you're depriving the electric company of doing that. You're a competitor.
Well, that's the great thing about micro hydro is that it's so tiny that the
Yeah.
PSC doesn't care.
Yeah.
Right.
But in the meantime, we can do the right thing
Mhm.
with clean energy.
Well, it sounds very exciting. I like in particular that it could be a showcase. It could be something that, you know, especially if we're discussing rehabbing the power station down by
Right.
the lower Sawkill.
It'd be a
Tourism.
nice draw.
Exactly. We want people to be coming to Bard, to Red Hook, to Montgomery Place. I think it's very exciting. And as you said, these things are so small that we don't have to worry about issues of abandonment. You know, there's an abandoned facility down there now, and it's not overwhelming. It's not something that's a blight on the landscape. I do think that, you know, possibly when it's reviewed by our committees and boards, they might be taking a look at, you know, how some of these, you know, facilities look to make sure that it is in keeping with the natural landscape and whatever we can do
Right.
to enhance that. But it's very exciting,
Yeah.
and
Actually, Lori and I were talking about the look of that Annandale site. And, you know, we could hide it, but maybe we don't want to hide it, just to, you know, as people are driving by and say, what's that? And then they'll stop and see this kind of amazing little
I
thing.
wouldn't hide it.
Sorry?
I wouldn't hide it myself.
Okay.
You know,
Well,
it's,
but that's really what your code should address, you know, do you want it hidden or not hidden? Or do
if you
want
can't
it?
fix it, you feature it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. All right, well, thanks so much for your time.
thanks very much,
Okay,
Bill.
thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And we have, with the help of our planner, and certainly with the help of the folks at Bard, we have actually been taken to look at the application. It would be a text amendment to our code, and we do have some initial work related to an EAF, Part 1. And I guess tonight, really what we can do is maybe take a look at that, but also authorize our planner to go ahead and work with the applicant, but to go ahead and to start drafting some language that we could take a look at to allow this, if we are so inclined. So I guess that is something to pull the board. Sarah?
Yeah, I think they're asking the right questions in these documents that you put forward. It seems like they're on the right track with what we usually worry about for something like this. Questions about screening and noise control and things like that. And it's, I mean, some of those were already answered in your presentation, but that will be the kind of thing that, you know,
Sure.
we'll have to consider. I mean, the area that we're looking at, you know, I like that you've limited it to a certain area, to existing dams only, all that, and that automatically reduces the number of residents that are going to be affected just because of where those locations are. So I think we have enough here definitely to move forward. That's my opinion.
And it's
I
essentially...
think it's a great thing to try.
Right. These sites are in your backyard. your backyard, meaning Bard College's backyard, in essence. Bill?
Well, I'm not so sure that we're ready yet, are we, for the Red Hook part of this equation? I mean, do you need to get some more insight from the state and the feds that you're going to be able to go ahead with the project?
Right, so I guess the question would be whether, we don't know whether we can go forward or not, right?
But you know that
the
Red
zoning
Hook,
part-
it seems like Red Hook will back you up and do it. Just a question whether we pay our planner ahead of time to do all this work
Yeah, well,
before we know that you can actually do it.
yeah, actually, they're paying our planner. This will be an escrow, so they'll be charged for all the work necessary. The question is whether or not we want to allow micro hydro, and in conjunction with the text amendment to our code, we'll be reviewing also the secret implications of those 3 potential sites, because we don't know yet, because they don't know yet, which location it will be.
Well, if
So
you-
we will
if you want
review
to pay
all 3.
somebody already, then
It'll be 2 sites eventually, right? Is that right? I mean, I know you have 3 possibilities, but isn't it, is it 2 sites or just
kind
1?
of think of it as 3 sites.
Two of the generators are using the same dam, but one of them, it's using it right there, and the other one is a pipe down to the Tivoli Bay.
So it could be 3 sites.
It's all in the same waterway.
It
All the
is.
same waterway, right?
And there really isn't in town another waterway that has adequate supply to
Correct.
floated for that
Correct.
purpose. And I guess one of the things I want to know is your relationship with Central Hudson, them being the power supplier here, and how they would perceive this.
We've been in contact with a project manager at Central Hudson, and they're coming out to do a site visit on this Friday.
Mhm.
But their initial assessment of the wire that's going across at Annandale, and the amount of electricity that we'd be generating, there's 0 problem.
Mhm.
It's such a small project,
Yeah.
they wouldn't need to upgrade to 3.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
In fact, these small distributed generation sites are great, maybe not great, but certainly of a benefit to the utilities, because if there is increased demand over the years, they don't have to bring in new lines, because the small little scattered generation sites can run on the existing smaller wires.
And Bill, to your point of, we don't really know if we can do this or not, but part of our grant, an obligation of the grant, is to facilitate this elsewhere in New York. So, paying for this process through Red Hook, whether or not we're successful here, will benefit someone else in New York.
so we need to hear.
And
So,
it's sorry.
Chris, what do we need to do then?
Well, I think
We just-
the suggestion is authorizing the planner to move forward with drafting language for the potential law for you to consider, and also, I would think, to review the seeker
You've already done that.
documents. Well, no, they've presented a draft, but Michelle will have to review it, and
Yeah.
I think there's
So I
there's
so
some things
moved.
that are missing in there, in
So
terms of
moved that the
especially
board do that.
other approvals and that sort of thing.
I second.
All right, is there any further discussion?
Anything can do it, we
This
can
is a
do
draft,
All
this
in,
is a draft by Bard
This
or
is
by
just,
Michelle?
right, correct, exactly.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very exciting, thank you very much. We appreciate all of your hard work, and it's really inspirational what you're
But this
doing.
doesn't extend to your property in Rhinebeck. You're on your own with that.
I'm in front of their board February 21st at 4:45.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Very good, okay, thank you all very much, and we are going to now figure out where to go next. Well, we're on number 9.
Lori, do you want these back?
Do you
Do you
tell
want this?
Michelle all about that?
Yeah.
You give her-
Do you want this?
You want to know
Is
in
that
that?
an extra one? Yeah, I do, thank you.
Huh?
Assuming I can get back to where we were.
I lost track.
Let's just stay on the mountain, it's nice.
Stay on the mountain,
Yeah.
okay.
It's nice and calm.
We haven't done it, item 4 yet.
Yeah, we're actually gonna go, Harry, if that's okay with you, we'll go to something quick and easy as I attempt to transition. Good night, all. Thank you very much for coming. No, that's not the one.
Hey Dennis, how you make it out with the clouds?
All right.
Good night.
There's been no sun for about 2 weeks.
Okay, no bullying solar. We don't want to do that. Okay, we're on item number 10, if we could. We discussed this at the last meeting. You authorized me to send that letter, which I did, to the solar developer or the interested party. We had a chance to take some time and review the request for a pilot, remove taxes, so if somebody does get the authorization to go ahead and build a solar farm somewhere in our community, the definition being anything in excess of the use generated by that site. And so we have that resolution in our packet here, number 10, and we do have a finite period of time in order to have this in place, I believe, because we did notify the developer.
But I thought you took an action last time to notify the
We
developer,
notified the
right?
developer, but it seems to me that we would want to have something on the books that says that this is our policy now.
No.
Wasn't there a form we had to answer?
No, we
No,
responded,
we
we responded
responded.
by letter.
Right.
Oh, by letter?
But
For
here is the
particular
resolution which would
situation.
establish this as our policy,
If-
so that if another developer comes in and
Where'd
asks
this
the same
resolution come
question.
from?
Well, we had
prepared
this
it last
resolution.
time.
Yeah.
We prepared it last time for
You
you
did.
to think about, but we also wanted to consult with the Energy Committee.
Yeah,
in
Dennis, who
terms
just
of-
left,
Yeah.
did that, and he does want this threshold of that in excess of the power that's generated on the site.
Yeah, I think we
Okay.
spoke
Because we
last
need
time
to
about
have-
doing
Yes.
this.
Yeah, we need to have a
So I'll so
threshold.
move.
Okay?
And I feel comfortable, Jim Ross not being here, but my understanding is that he agrees with this. We had talked about it before.
Yeah, it seemed
Yeah,
like
he did.
So I would make
I
that
was sitting
motion
This is
to
resolution
adopt
number
resolution number
10.
10. Okay, it's a resolution regarding required pilot for property tax eligible for exemption under RPTL section 487. And the summation of this is if somebody builds a solar farm or anaerobic digester or some other kind of community distributed generation system, that even though they are exempt from property taxes, we can require them to pay, make a payment in lieu of those taxes. And so, Bill, thank
Yes,
you
I move-
for moving, and the
that.
second was not yet.
Not yet.
I'll do it.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, for seconding. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Well, we are moving right along, nothing for the screen just at this moment. Number 11, zoning for food trucks. You know, we took a look at an initial sort of memo from the ZRC on food trucks. We had a couple of responses, some of you board members did some input. I guess it's reflected in this latest draft. I don't know if you've had some time to review that, if we want to take any kind of action on it this evening.
Is this post our discussions?
It is post our discussions, Harry, so I'm surmising from your question that maybe you need a little more time to review it. Obviously, it would need to go to our planner to help us figure out how to incorporate it into our code.
Was there anything that came out of the discussion of the task force when this was brought to them? I see that the draft has been modified quite a bit, which is great.
I think that did come out of the task
Yeah.
force meeting as
Yeah.
well, so it was.
Wasn't there one or two questions left open? I don't have my notes from that discussion, but, or did we resolve those? There weren't some particularly significant questions we had about it.
Here you go. Oh, you just passed it.
I'm sorry, here we are,
Mm,
okay.
mm, mm. That won't work, I have it printed,
Go to full screen here for the folks at home.
Is there a cover letter with this from ZRC saying that they had reviewed it and made the changes and gone over it with the committee itself?
I think there was an email just sent to Jackie saying this is, in response to the comments, it's been amended. I think the question,
I think the ZRC had to approve it again, right? The whole committee?
I don't know if we did that. Shall we wait
Well,
and consider
yeah,
and
maybe we'll bring
take
it
this
up
up
on
on the
Friday.
14th?
And we'll
Bring it up on
Friday.
Friday, okay.
I'm wondering if
think
there's a
that's-
way to informally circulate it to the planning board and zoning board for their comments, because they're the
You
ones that
can.
will have to, well, although actually, I guess so, the zoning enforcement officer will be the one to answer questions initially.
He was there.
He's part of this.
He was
right?
part of
I
the
know he's on the
discussion.
DRC, I'm just thinking out loud here,
Yeah.
so, I mean, really, there's no reason a normal one of these would need to go to the planning board or zoning board unless they needed a variance or something, right? Like if they had a
Yeah,
food
they
truck
had
that
a
was more than 32
larger
feet long or
size.
something, or,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
That
there's-
is one of the changes that was made, was the length of the
But otherwise,
truck.
there's almost no reason that they would have to, I still wonder if they would have any feedback,
The planning board
yeah, or the zoning board.
of appeals?
Yeah, like if it's clear enough for them to be able to, you know, help enforce it.
No, there was a representative from both of them
Of each
there.
of them.
There's a couple of representatives from the planning board, in on the discussions.
This may be another one of those things
But
we
so
might be
don't-
ready to send to the planner to start work on and continue to
Mhm.
review, have them review, have the task force look at it, and then as soon as a draft comes
I don't
out
think
of
there's,
the
I don't think there's a lot of
planning
exposure just moving forward with what we have here, in this case.
side. Well,
Somebody's got to check.
just note that Michelle will need to incorporate this into our code.
Yeah.
What's been done here was, you know, essentially done by the advisory committee.
Right.
And so we
And I
need
think
to
it
make
was
sure
kind of
it's
copied from somebody else's a little bit, so
Saugerties, yep. Yep.
we'll need somebody to look
Saugerties
at
was
it.
the one. So, shall we?
I mean, I have some
sorry.
questions, but if we're gonna send it to Michelle anyway, then I can just send her my questions, I mean,
Yep,
we can
okay,
talk
any
about it here,
comments?
but, yeah, there's no.
So shall we do that? All right, make a motion that we refer this document that's been drafted by the zoning review committee to our planner for an initial draft to incorporate into our code, subject to review by obviously our boards, but also the town board and the zoning review committee. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank
Aye.
you so much. All right, so let's go back to item number 4. Don't look at the screen because you'll get nauseous looking at me scrolling. Item number 4 was resolutions for the Association of Towns. So I wonder, have you had a chance to review them? There are 11 that are proposed.
I think they're great.
Okay. Just for the folks at home, every year, the Association of Towns, that's a not-for-profit organization that municipalities belong to. It's done to assist small communities like ours in guiding us in our practices. And each year, they serve as an amalgamation for advocacy for local municipalities, and they draft resolutions that they look for our support on issues that are important to small communities like ours. And those resolutions this year include, and I'll do this as quickly as I can, for the state to fund local water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure to a greater degree than it already does. That's resolution number 1. The same is true for highway and bridge funding. One of the things that we know here in the local community is that while we do receive some state and federal support for repaving our roads, it's not nearly as much as we need in order to maintain a schedule that works. Resolution number 3 is increased revenue sharing. And there's a formula that was derived some years ago and has been changed, and they are looking for that formula for sharing to be updated. To address unfunded mandates, boy, that's an ongoing issue. Resolution number 5, pertinent certainly to what we're experiencing right here in Red Hook, which is a resolution to assist local communities in improving their cemetery operations, revenue, and abandonment process. We have a cemetery up in Tivoli, in the town of Red Hook, Tivoli border there, where the volunteers feel they are no longer able to maintain the operations. And so asking us to take over that cemetery. And what this resolution is to try to set some minimum support from the state in order to do that. It's a function that doesn't normally go with local municipalities, and it's something you obviously can't budget for each year because you don't know if you're going to be in the business of running a cemetery corporation and all the demands that ensues. Okay, number 6 is to authorize an optional town gross receipts tax, and that's where we can tax the utilities and derive some extra funds to maintain our budgets. Resolution 7 is rather minor, but it deals with the return check fee and updating that fee. Preserve and strengthen home rule. We've talked about this. New York State is a home rule state. It feels very home rule until you have to go do something like recommend a change in the speed limit on your own town road, and you realize you're at the mercy of the state, and they ultimately decide what's best for you. And so this talks about several activities that if the towns and small communities would have greater authority over would benefit our operations. And then resolution 9, okay, again, strengthening home rule as it relates to siting of wind and solar energy facilities. A big topic, especially in other parts of the state where they are seeing large-scale solar farms and wind farms. In resolution number 10, a property tax cap reform. The tax cap has been met with mixed reviews, as I'm sure you know. And they are looking for some exemptions and some reform to that program so that it doesn't penalize certain circumstances. And the last one is resolution number 11, which is to reform the real property tax system and essentially to not rely so heavily on property taxes to support basic functions like education and so on and so forth. And those are the resolutions. For the folks at home. So, shall we take them all at once? Would we like to support all those Association of Town resolutions at the Wednesday meeting in February?
I think we should.
I do too. I'm comfortable with all of them.
Okay.
I scanned through them all and I felt like, I mean, there were a number that were, you know, like you said, very pertinent to things we've talked about very recently here, and they all would benefit us in some way, so.
Okay. Very good. That's item number 4. And I would like to make a motion that we vote to support in total the proposed resolutions of the Association of Towns meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Okay, well, shall we try to tackle maybe just a couple things on reorg? As I mentioned to you, not quite ready to, we haven't had a lot of input from committee chairs, I might add, so we'll ask Jackie tomorrow to remind them to please correspond with our office so that we can consider their thoughts on that. I do know, however, we did receive word from the Design Review Hamlet Committee for instance. And I know they have a couple of applications that we're reviewing. That is Chairperson Chris Gilbert, Hop Michael Brown is obviously a vacancy. Jeff Carter and Tiffany are not up for reappointment. So I would go ahead and make a motion to approve the reappointment of Chris Gilbert and George Michael with 2-year terms expiring 2018 to the Design Review Hamlet Committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
So that means that, so there's one vacancy on that
Right,
committee.
so there will be a vacancy, there is a vacancy, obviously from the passing of Michael Brown. And we also, would we like to entertain reappointing Chris Gilbert as the chair of the committee?
I would
Please.
move that.
Okay.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay.
I know, well, actually I don't, never mind.
Okay. We have several letters of interest on the Economic Development Committee, but unfortunately we're not ready to do anything. We haven't heard from the chair. We haven't heard from other people who are currently on the committee. So we really can't move forward with that. I do know that the Trails Committee is eager to appoint someone to that committee. And that is Kat Biego. And there is interestingly enough, I don't see a vacancy.
Yes,
So
as far as I know, there isn't one, and the both
They
the
want to
people
expand.
want to.
To re-up.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was thinking, I don't know what you guys think. I guess I'm wondering why we need both John Kuhn and Doug on there. Like, couldn't John, as the rec commission director or whatever he's called, couldn't he be like, you know, like an advisor or something, and, you know, go to the meetings if he wants to? I mean, he's a town hall staff person, so, you know, I mean, and his work is like obviously completely linked with their work, but it seems like we often do that with staff people where they're not necessarily always a member of the committee so much as like an advisor to a committee. That was just my only thought. I mean, we could probably also expand the committee, but.
Yeah, I'd be hesitant, John does so much, I'd be hesitant to tell him we're gonna make him an advisor without.
Well, no, just
certainly
ask
check
him,
with
just
him.
ask him like if that would.
Work.
Well, his mission and as a, with recreation really overlaps very heavily with this,
Mhm.
you know.
Well, he's
That's
got-
why he's on the committee. And Doug, and likewise Doug, as a matter of fact. They're both,
John's got the chainsaw.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out, so Howie's the chair,
For maintenance
he's
of those
employed by
trails.
the rec
Yeah.
commission. John is the chair or the, well, Doug's the chair of the rec commission and John is
So-
employed by it. I'm just saying, that's a lot of rec commission,
Right.
like as an official membership
Mhm.
that could, I mean, I'm not saying that we don't want any, obviously we want all of them, like they're all wonderful and valuable. I'm just saying if we want to have more people on there, another way to do it would be to simply say that like the chair of the rec commission is always like an ex officio or like a advisory member of this committee or something
Okay.
like that. I don't know, I'm just
Okay.
throwing that out there. We
Okay.
could also expand it to 8 people.
Well, why don't we,
Is there
Sarah-
precedent for that?
Yeah, well, there's always precedent for expanding the size of the membership of committees and shrinking them as well. Why don't we go ahead, if this sort of suits both lines of thinking, and appoint Kat, and then we'll, somebody will broach that topic with John, and then we could always shrink it back down to 7.
Sure.
Does that make sense? I know they're very eager to get her on the committee, so I don't know how
So
we
you want to
we
increase
make that happen.
to 8 members?
To
or-
8 members, so this would be an appointment expiring 2018. Does that make sense to everyone if we go that route? Bill, you're okay? Okay. So,
And who is this? Kat?
Kat Viega, yes.
Her letter of interest is in our packet.
Yeah. And she helped us with our federal grant that we applied for the path on 199 from the high school to travel. And if we should
And with our
be so
Greenway grant
lucky.
also.
And with our Greenway grant, yeah. So, yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Kat for a 2-year period expiring in 2018 to the Greenway and Trails Committee, expanding that committee to 8 members in the same motion.
second thing.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you so much.
Do we want to reappoint Howie?
Yes, well, why don't we reappoint our chair while we're here, since we know he wants to stay on. And so, I'd like to make a motion that we reappoint Howie Callis as the chair of the Greenway and Trails Committee.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay. So, I don't know if we could just go to the planning board for 1 second. And tonight, all we are prepared to do, I think, is to reappoint Chris Kane as the chair if we so desire. Charlie Lang, there's a question mark about whether or not he'll be staying on with us. He's expressed interest in becoming a village trustee now that he's moved into the village. So I would propose that we have Charlie hold over, be a holdover for the next several weeks until we discover whether or not he actually is going to stay on our planning board. He's indicated that if he is, in fact, chosen to be a village trustee, that he will not be doing both positions.
Well, we can appoint him, reappoint him, and he's kind of automatically, perhaps,
And then have
have a
him
limited
resign.
term.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine, so I'm fine with that.
Rather than
Whatever.
complicate the thing. I think.
Okay, so, why don't we have a singular motion? I'd like to make a motion that we reappoint Christine Kane as the chair of the planning board, and also reappoint Charlie Lang to a term to expire in 2023. Yeah, I know. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. So Harry, as I'm scrolling through these committees, may I nudge you to help us with St. Margaret so we can keep moving? forward on that. I had a couple of phone calls from Robert George. He wants to know what we think of his proposal. So, all of those things, if you could help, and I'd be happy to help. And I know Sarah's offered some help, so we can figure out how we want to move forward with St. Margaret's.
I think
think
Senior
that's
Services
all.
Committee had said, I don't know if they emailed Sue, but I think I had emailed them to just nudge them to, consider, and they just said, yes, everybody wants to be on, but, now that I think about it, I guess they canceled their meeting this week, so maybe we better just wait, just in case.
Yeah, I haven't heard
Yeah.
anything from them, so yeah, we really have to, I'll ask Jackie, now that we'll have a little calm after the storm, to really get in touch with each chair so that we can.
Did we
go
do the
ahead
rec
and-
commission? I know they definitely said they
Yeah,
want
John had
to
sent
re-up
us-
everybody.
John,
Did we not do that last
No.
time? Well, let's
I'm trying
do
to
that.
remember if we did that, we did,
Yeah.
okay.
John sent us
I thought it was
word
done.
that the 4 individuals that are, or actually it's 3, that are up for reappointment are interested in staying on. And they are Doug Strowinski, Melissa Germano, and Shannon Miller. And so would somebody like to make a motion to reappoint them with a term ending in 2018, a 2-year term?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Harry. And Bill, would you like to second that?
Seconded?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then as chair, Doug Strowinski, obviously Doug has done a wonderful job for us,
Yeah.
not only in this area, but in other areas. And I would strongly recommend we reappoint him for a 1-year term as the chair.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And that's kind of all we have, we're prepared to do tonight on that issue. So, discussion authorization streetlight audit, so we're moving.
Can I just interrupt? I
Oh,
received
sorry.
another phone call today from Real Property Tax.
Yes,
And they're.
we know. The
Okay.
assessment
The
review board.
assessment review
As a
is-
reminder, and I have been speaking to some folks that have some background, we do need somebody for the assessment review board. So if you have some ideas of folks,
Replace who?
okay, that is to replace Lois Chinkus,
Oh, yeah.
who, despite her 30 years of service on the board, somehow came to the
But do the
conclusion
other
she didn't
members
want
of
to
the
do it
board
for
know
another
looking for
5 years.
somebody? They may know somebody.
Yes, they may, they may. And I do believe they are aware of that, but I will reach out to them as well. Take a look at the makeup of the
That'd be
board.
best source, yeah.
Yeah, and just, be cognizant of that board in particular, just, the professions, and make sure we avoid any potential appearance of conflict of interest, because that's a very important board. They ultimately decide what our property values are for tax purposes.
Does the grievance board have to be 5 members, the Board of Assessment Review?
I think it does.
Because, I mean, that's, May comes very quick,
Yeah,
grievance times.
well, we have
Yeah.
4, so we'll need to have an
Well, so I'm
odd
just
number
wondering
We
anyway.
have to have an odd number.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
We'll get her done, as they say. We have till Valentine's Day. And we can do it sooner if not. So we had some discussion on the agenda. Our street light, we're moving forward with purchasing our own streetlights, so we can lower the cost to our taxpayers. And as Harry will tell you, we can also importantly control what type of lights are put up, and we can sort of have a win-win for everyone. Now, one of the things that we must do, however, is have an audit, so we know what the inventory is. And at the same time that we have an inventory audit, we can have a billing audit, which we have not done as a community. Other communities have. They've had some success hiring this work out. Conceivably, we could do the work ourselves. It would require getting a bunch of volunteers, going out at night and day and recording whole numbers and looking at wattage of lights. It's a consideration that, depending upon what the savings are, I know the Village of Red Hook did this a few years back. They had a refund of something like $3,500. On the other hand, we had the town of Rosendale, I think, that did an audit, had a refund of $30,000. I don't think we're expecting anything that
But
grant.
this company will take 40% and we get 60.
Exactly right. And, I tried to negotiate them down. Their normal rate is 50%. And, they don't even know if they're gonna make any money on this when they start out. Actually, there was one municipality at the last meeting that hired them, and another municipality that went through the exercise, and they realized that actually what they were being billed was pretty accurate, and it's a lot of work to not get any money back. But we have a dual purpose here.
Seems like a good deal.
Yeah, we have a dual purpose here, of also wanting to update our inventory. And we may have to do some follow-up to that inventory audit, but we'll be prepared to move forward with either the Mid-Hudson Streetlight Consortium or others to purchase our lights and design them. We're gonna have Harry design all our lights.
Absolutely.
So anyway, I would.
I'm going to start with the gas lantern.
I would move that we authorize the supervisor to enter into that agreement with
Okay.
the Adirondack Company and.
Right, it's Computel Consultants out of Earlville, and they've been used by municipalities all around and have arrangements with some of the organizations. So, thank you, Bill, that's a motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sarah.
I would
Any
just say, you're going to say discussion.
further
Yeah.
discussion?
For the folks at home, if they don't find us a refund, there's no cost to us, right? So
That's
it's
right.
basically,
That's right, exactly.
fairly risk-free for us, so.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Number 8. So we were gonna do some more seeker work related to local law H. That was incentive zoning. We did part 1, part 2. Jim is not here, and I'm thinking there are a couple reasons we may want to actually vote at the next meeting versus this meeting, but we certainly can approve the part 2 and 3 of the seeker if you'd like to do that, the neg deck. And this would be, we have a resolution adopting a secret determination of non-significance for local law H proposed in 2016. That is regarding incentive zoning. For the folks at home, that's the part of our code that allows developers to have additional development in exchange for either preserving land or supplying the town with incentive zone fees. So we do have a resolution, it's resolution number 11.
And I think, could I just ask you?
Please do.
You have your LWRP consistency determination, do you want to take that up first, and then review the seeker? I mean, what we should do is go over the part 2 and part 3, if we could, before you take up the resolution.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think that's that.
Did we get the LWRP on
Yes,
this?
we should, well.
I think we got it.
Michelle sent it around. Do you need a copy of it? See, I don't know if it's in your packet.
Well, it didn't make it to mine for some reason.
Okay, may I
Does
make a
somebody else
copy for
have
you?
it?
Yeah.
Right?
And you could- we should go for this.
Unless we got this at the last meeting, I'm trying to remember, is that possible? No, I think we got that for our Greenway guy.
But I'll go make copies for you. Do you want to start going through the part 2 perhaps, and then I'll make this copy
Sure.
when you're good enough?
Maybe we have part 2. Yeah, we didn't have one. I don't have a part 2. Does anybody else have a part 2?
Pretty good, yeah, I was looking at
I
what
didn't
we
get
lost.
that either. Okay, well, so much for that. Did you get a part too? Nothing like that.
We're looking for incentive zoning.
Yeah, it's item number
Yeah, I have,
8 on your
I have,
agenda.
I have two resolutions here.
Yes, but we don't have the backup
Mhm.
for that.
And you have a secret neg deck.
Chris is stuck with the machine. All right, shall we, why don't we jump around for a little bit while we're figuring out that? Shall we start with board reports? That's number 12 in our folders. Sarah, would you be kind enough just to read the very brief planning board
Sure.
report?
Yeah, so the planning board met twice in December and once in January and held public hearings and granted conditional approvals for the following projects. An application for a lot line adjustment to convey a total of 1.01 acres of land from 2 parcels to the Red Hook Town Hall parcel. A proposal to subdivide a 29.64 acre parcel into 3 lots on Cedar Drive and Birchwood/Overlook Drive in the R1.5 district. And an application, it's the Teviot tree application. It wasn't, I mean, so it says it's to remove trees within the 1,000 feet of the Hudson River. It was really the whole issue of remediating the tree removal that had already occurred, but in any case, that was also held.
Are these new trees though as well?
Well, so they, as far as I know, the actual application before the board is not to remove new trees, it's to approve the plan
Okay, the mitigation
to
plan.
mitigate
Okay,
the removal of the trees. So it's a confusing way of putting it the way it has been worded on both the planning board agendas and on this report,
Okay.
but in any case. That's in the Waterfront Conservation Zoning District and National Historic Landmarks District, and that was why that area received special scrutiny. The board also granted approval for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish an existing circa 1980 house in the Historic Overlay District.
okay.
And they continue to review a sketch plan application to renovate and expand the existing 10-room motel to a 20-room motel on a 5.992 acre parcel, of which 2.something acres are located in the B1 zoning district and the remaining 3.6 acres are located in the RD3 district. That would be Schaefer's Hudson Valley site plan in Upper Red Hook area. So they're still reviewing that sketch plan.
Okay. And for the folks at home, it's going to be called Schaefer's Hudson Valley, but they probably know it as the Gaslight Inn, which has been operating for several decades here in Upper Red Hook on Route 9. Bill, we have a police department report.
The police department, for the monthly report, announced that they had total incidents for the reporting period were 104. They were handled by the police department. The total number of arrests were 15, and the total number of tickets issued by the Red Hook Police Department for the past month was 34.
Okay, very good. And we have, for the folks at home, you're watching this on the screen there, we get a report each month of the arrests or tickets that are made in our community and at least the road where those incidents have taken place. And you can see some of the things going on in your community. Including medical emergencies, our firefighters and our police, our responders. are. Okay, very good. There is a super short zoning board of appeals report for January 17th. Thank you very much, Chris. Chris, we also don't actually have a part 2. So obviously that must have come together and we don't have it. I'm wondering if, since we're not voting tonight, whether or not we want to just finish the seeker at the next meeting. I don't know, that's up to the board members, but Jim was to report the ZBA obviously is not here, and the report is that the meeting was canceled. There was nothing on the agenda, so we can do that for him. Bill, we have a building department report.
The building department for the past month, December 19th to January 23rd, conducted 2 fire inspections. Worked on a total of 8 permits that were reviewed and issued. There were a total of 30 inspections performed by the building department during that period. And 41 total certificates of compliance or of occupancy were issued by the building department during that period. And the total amount of revenue from fees and searches was $1,772.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Bill. What else do we have here on our packets to report? We've got police, building department, water district. Harry, could I ask you to give a quick summation of what's happening with the water district?
Well, our water district overall has been in excellent shape. I don't see anything significant happening. There's been some work done on the pump house that needed some repair work. That has been done. I didn't look at this in advance. And what I see here is details of the repair work in the pump house, which some of it was just a function of replacing doors that were falling apart and walls that were falling apart, actually getting as a result of too much water on them. But the system in total has been meeting all requirements, all health requirements, and has been doing well.
Okay. And we had an expense of replacing one of the valves there, I noticed in the report.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Harry. Bill, did you want to report on your task force meeting?
Well, at weekly meetings in December and January, the task force, intermunicipal task force, continued to review drafts regarding proposed amendments to the zoning code dealing with solar energy systems and the Hamlet Business District for Upper Red Hook. At the January 13th meeting, there was a joint meeting with the Zoning Review Committee where the 2 committees discussed and reviewed a 2-page proposed amendment to the town's zoning code entitled Red Hook Food Truck Zoning Regulations, which have been prepared by the Zoning Review Committee. And as a result of that discussion, there were changes made, and I think tonight that proposed draft has been returned to the town board and may be acted upon at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bill. Harry, we have a rec commission report.
Yeah.
And I challenge you to read the whole thing, but in lieu of that, would you be kind enough to try to give us the highlights?
I can summarize.
Okay.
We had a meeting about a week ago, and there's a lot of cleanup work going on in the rec park, even so far as removing leaves and all the things that you've done in your backyard over the winter. There is the locust tree that's been of a concern in the young kids area of the park where their play toys are. The locust tree will be removed before the spring. And one of the messages we got is that there is oak wilt has come to this area, and oak wilt is destroying elm trees, as we all remember the Dutch elm disease and whatever. How far that will go, I am hoping that it won't spread far and wide, but it doesn't look good for oak trees in the future. But basically, the report says if it gets the fungus, it usually dies within several months.
Okay.
We have abundant oak trees in town, and certainly in the rec park. Losing them will be awful.
Okay, anything else? I do note in the report, just to let folks know, if you're using the rec facility, starting in the spring, we have recycling containers. We would, of course, very much appreciate if you could do everything to ensure that only recycling materials go in those containers, because it is added work for our staff and for the haulers, and we are paying an additional cost for that, but obviously that's an obligation that we have as a community to ensure that we're recycling as much as we can. All right, thank you very much, Harry. Sarah, a brief report from the Tree Commission.
Sure, so the Tree Commission's already busy for their Arbor Day celebration planning and spring planting schedule. So they've set the date for Saturday, April 29th. That's usually here at Town Hall in the parking lot, and they'll usually have some kind of tent with informational things and free seedlings. They host a luncheon for the volunteers, and then they plant a number of trees around town in celebration of various people who have been, long-term volunteers and that kind of thing. So they also discussed a pruning schedule for the rec park trees, and they've discussed their reorg, but I think there's one person that they thought was on it that needs to send something in, so we should wait, and we'll do them next time maybe. And they are reviewing their forest management plan for updates and revisions. It was last updated in 2008, so even though that maybe seems, it's not like we have a huge significant protected forest here, but it's just basically a management plan for the whole town that talks about how we take care of our trees. So that's it.
Yeah. And it's important to note that the management plan, once we adopted a management plan, if we identified trees that were important to the community, that is something that the planning board must take into account when developers come in and propose a development. And I think you mentioned this, the Treadwell 100th anniversary. I mean, that's very impressive for the Treadwells. We congratulate them. And speaking of congratulations, just to let the folks know that the Red Hook Fire Company had their annual officers meeting and festivities, and Bill and I were fortunate enough to join them, and really very impressive. The awards, the number of calls, the company had 852 calls that they responded to, and one individual had 520 of those calls were answered, and then many others in the several hundreds. In fact, over 10 individuals had nearly 200 calls that they responded to, and more. So really sort of an inspirational to hear just how much, and you know firsthand now, don't you? How
Yep.
how available they are to help us out in times of need. So that's pretty much all I had. But speaking of fire companies, we did get one piece of correspondence I think I shared with you. There's a company who is partnering with the County Volunteer Firemen's Association. They put out those boxes, those clothing, shoes, and drop boxes that we see. We have a couple already around town. They would like to know if we are interested in having a box somewhere on our property, maybe at the recycling center, and they pay a fee to the Firemen's Association. Something like $50 a month for every month that they have one of those boxes there goes to that association. So I'm not looking for a response today, but something for you to consider if that's something you'd be interested in. Obviously, we would have to talk to the folks that would help us figure out if we even have room for something like that on our campus. So that's all I have for this evening. Does anybody else have any correspondence, or is there any public comment at the end of tonight's meeting? If not, I would make a motion that we conclude tonight's meeting.
Did we formally say we're going to do the incentive zoning next meeting?
I think we have to, right? We don't even have our part 2 for some reason.
Is there anything we could do tonight? Or?
I mean, we can make copies of them, we need to, that would take a little bit of time.
And we would have to review them. I mean, I think that even the
So we'll just have to change the date.
determination,
Change the date on those.
and update that, and then we'll take action at our next meeting.
Yeah.
And that'll dovetail nicely with timing on some other
So-
local laws.
Perhaps in the meantime, those forms that you didn't get in your packet could be circulated to the
Oh, of
board so
course.
they can read them ahead of time.
When's our next meeting? Valentine's Day?
Valentine's Day, Bill.
February 14th, I'll be here.
That'd be nice. Can we do it in candlelight?
In candlelight, well,
Just kidding.
Can we accommodate any issue you may have? I hate to see you sit there in silence all night.
Just learning,
Okay.
taking it all in.
very good.
I'm
Well,
tired.
we'll try to cooperate with you in any way possible.
I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. So there's a motion to end the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Harry. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for joining us as always.